Let's talk about statues, and don't tell me this isn't a faith issue. Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after justice. You may have been brought up with the word righteousness, but the Greek will stand either translation, and righteousness sounds like it's about individual piety. As a Methodist, I can't hear that. John Wesley famously said there is no holiness that is not social holiness. So let's think about what justice issues are involved in the erecting, the orderly removal or disorderly removal of statues.
We might also talk about political correctness.
We should talk about political correctness gone mad. Or should I say gone with the wind?
Yeah, maybe another time. Let's focus on statues. I used to live in Bristol, and to be honest, I was more aware of the city's dependence on tobacco than on slavery. I graduated for the second time in the Wills building, dedicated to that champion of public unhealth, Henry Wills of Imperial Tobacco.
Remind me where you lived in Bristol.
Just off the White Ladies Road.
Near Black Boy Hill, is that right?
Whoops, they will have to change that name now.
You know, when I lived there, I thought there was a link to slavery, but there isn't. The black boy was Charles II, who had black hair and swarthy skin.
Phew.
And you went to concerts in the Colston Hall?
Yes, I did, with no idea who Colston was. The name Colston was all over the city. I didn't hang around the docks much. Can't remember if I ever saw the now notorious statue.
And if you had seen it, if you'd known what he had done, how would you have felt?
Well, uneasy, just as I did about the Wills building. I'm never sure about statues anyway.
Because
They're stuck up on plinths, so you literally have to look up to them, i.e. admire them.
You don't like admiring people?
Not uncritically, no. I don't like idolising them, and a statue is just one step from an idol. Some of the vehemence with which statue defenders are expressing themselves sounds like it's bordering on idolatry.
we can surely agree that statues matter because of what they represent. Colston was a great benefactor to the city of Bristol. Why should not the city honour him?
You know the answer to that. He was also a slave trader, and a particularly callous one, it seems.
And that will still be true even if you don't put the statue back on its plinth. If it's not there, you will forget what Colston did, for better or worse. And Bristol's wealth will still have been built on slaves and tobacco. You can't undo history.
It should never have been put up in the first place. The council had been petitioned about it for years. The people got fed up with waiting.
You mean a mob got fed up with waiting?
You say mob, I say the will of the people.
People should obey the law.
The Bristol process was entirely peaceful. The only violence done was to the statue.
I meant the law about social distancing, staying at home where possible.
But the time had come to pull down the statue.
And if you had waited 6 months for the virus to die down, would the time have gone? The statue had been there for 125 years. Another half a year would have made no difference.
My question is, what does justice require?
Justice has been done. The statue has been placed in a museum where it belongs.
But at the price of trying to rewrite history. A statue was erected because in 1895 the people of Bristol thought that Colston's generosity to the city outweighed his involvement in the slave trade.
In 1895, after the abolition of slavery, someone made a bad call, didn't they?
Maybe, but it is a fact of history that it was made, and the reminder should have been left in place. Bristolians should not be allowed to forget how their moral compasses worked back in the day. The statue should be put back on its plinth.
Alongside another one of Paul Stevenson?
Who?
Oh, do keep up. Paul Stevenson was a civil rights activist in Bristol. He campaigned against a colour bar on the city buses in 1963. There's a campaign to have a statue of him put up in the Bristol docks.
Is he dead?
Not yet.
Don't you have to be dead before they can put up a statue of you?
Well, I think you do, in case you disgrace yourself before shuffling off the mortal. So it's complicated, it's getting politicised, it's getting ugly, and in my view it's also getting silly. But I am trying to be balanced here. Can we perhaps backtrack a little? We are where we are because of an incident of police brutality in America that sparked off a worldwide chain of protests against institutional racism.
Plenty of that in Britain. You only have to look at racist hate speech on social media.
And there should be less of it.
There shouldn't be any of it.
Of course. Black lives matter. Everyone's life matters. It shouldn't need saying. But what do the protesters want? What are their demands? I see crowds on the streets. They're not happy that American policemen killed a black man who might or might not have committed a small crime. But it seems to me that because they don't know how to change hearts and minds, they are picking on statues.
We don't seem to be able to cope with ambivalence, with the idea that a great man might have great flaws. Churchill seems to me a supreme example. His views on race were obnoxious, but without him Britain might have lost the war.
So, would you pull his statue down?
No, but there are questions about where the best place for it is and how the inscription reads. If it doesn't say something like, "Despite his white supremacist views," that needs to be addressed. Vandalising it won't achieve anything.
What about Clive of India?
Different matter. Appalling man, responsible for genocide. He belongs in a hall of infamy somewhere, not on Whitehall.
According to you?
Yes, according to me and many others. There needs to be a proper debate, and it won't do just to say, oh, well, this is part of our history. A decision was made to honour a villain and to preserve his monument, and that is a cause for shame. If it has taken the Black Lives Matter movement to help us realise that, then good for it. We should have taken offence a long time ago.
So would you go case by case?
It's the only way we can go. Taking down a statue doesn't change the past, but leaving it up with an inscription in praise of values we no longer respect will cause offence, and rightly so, and it does need to be changed. Signs are this is now starting to happen. Some statues should never have been put up in the first place. Imagine anybody now putting up a statue to a certain popular entertainer and great charity fundraiser.
That sounds all right.
Jimmy Savile?
I
think the biggest challenge right now is to avoid getting any more polarised over this than we already are. Not everyone in Bristol who wants to see Colston back on his plinth is a racist, and not all civil rights campaigners have wings. Martin Luther King was an atrocious womaniser, so maybe the Me Too protesters should campaign to have his statues pulled down. I would like to plead for nuance, for a recognition that great people often have great flaws to go with their greatness, and that one man's hero is another woman's monster. It is possible to be both. Holy Spirit, please grant us some wisdom right now.